Hey guys, I'm Toastmonster, and in this video I'm going to be teaching you how to make the most of your opponent's mistakes. Now, the two main mistakes your opponents are going to make are going to be positioning and cooldown mismanagement. Now, capitalizing on your opponent's mistakes is definitely one of the things that really separates top players from lower rated players, because if your opponent uses a cooldown wrong and your team notice and then can punish them for that, that's going to actually mean that mistake costs them the game, whereas if you don't even try to use it, so for instance if a druid barkskins when no one's on him and you don't then use that, that's just a waste of an opportunity and you're not going to be maximising the amount of pressure your team can have or the amount of kill opportunities your team have. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about is positioning. So in this example clip, it's going to be against double healer fire mage. Now, this is going to be a team that's really difficult for us to get a kill on because I'm playing a shadow play. So we don't really have that much burst, we're more dot oriented. So we're definitely going to need to capitalise on their cooldown mismanagement and their positioning. Now, let's focus on positioning. There, both paladins were grouped up, so I'm able to get a double Shadow Fury. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but when we're based off dots, and one Dispel will clean all our dots, it's quite important to not be letting these guys get too much freedom, because we're going to lose pressure if both healers are free to heal and Dispel. There, it's really some minor things like that throughout the entire game that can really make the difference, and if I was playing Howl instead, I'd have been able to get a double Howl, but I'm not, so I can only fear one. But, you know, if you can do things like that consistently throughout the game, you're just going to be that little bit better off, and in longer games, that's definitely going to make a difference. Now, this is going to be another crucial moment for positioning. They've both been dispelled now, so we don't have a fear. But we notice the paladin, is running into the map while the mage runs back, and Leatherbelt is running back with his mage. Now, we're going to see that a paladin's pushing in on our druid, most likely for a hodge, and we're going to try and capitalise on this. But I do get hodged, but he's still really far away, so my priest gets dots on him, and the paladin Leatherbelt comes back in, and I get my full dots up here that still have Dark Soul and my own use. They're going to be quite damaging dots, and because the paladin was running back and the other one was running in, my priest able to land a double fear, and we've actually got quite a lot of pressure now, and our druid gets a knockback onto the paladin, so he's slowed. We notice the other paladin running in now. Meanwhile, the mage has been off trying to kill my pet, so we've actually had no pressure on our team here, but we've been able to use a lot of that mana. Now, this is important as well. I feared the mage, and he got put to the other side of the bridge, while both paladins are on the opposite side with our druid. So my priest is going to silence the mage. He's going to use his plague, and I get my full dots up on him as well. And we're actually going to force an ice block here, because my druid was able to land a cyclone on one of their paladins, and the other wasn't able to keep the mage up enough. Now, that's another way to abuse positioning with fear pathing, especially as a warlock. But, you know, you can really do that with any class, because there's a lot of mechanics like that now. So you have your Siphons from priests and your intimidating shout from warrior, or if you've symbiosis to fear from a warrior and a druid. So it's really important to make the most of those. And then straight away, because a paladin's in the middle of the bridge now and Leatherbelt's still CC'd whereas mage is in a block, we've swapped the pressure over to him with a Shadow Fury as well, and my druid gets a knockoff on the other Holy Paladin, and we just have a lot of pressure at the moment because we've been abusing their positioning to force their cooldowns, and then that puts the other players in a worse position to try and counteract the initial pressure. Now, nothing too much really happens for the next bit, so I'm just going to fast forward through that, but then it gets to the point where they're all going to group up, and my priest is going to be able to land a triple fear. Now that's going to be huge for us because it means we can actually get a lot of damage out. Now, because of how pushed in this team are, they're actually not able to have a very good positioning for them. They're not going to be able to line of sight any of our damage, really, because they don't really have much line of sight aside from these pillars. But we're able to get pretty much full damage because our druid's able to get knockdowns. And now both paladins are in the middle, and one of them's just been dispelled of all dots, so we're going to go straight onto the other one, which is a paladin in this situation. We're just going to try and have as much spread pressure as we can here. Our priest did silence Leatherbelt there, and I've got the mage dotted again because he has already used a block, and we know he does take quite a substantial amount of damage, especially since he's probably not playing with resilience gemmed. Now, nothing much really happens for a little while, so I'm just going to cut from that because it's quite a long game. Now here, one of the paladins is sat at about 60% and low on health, so we put a full fear onto the other one, and I get Dark Soul dots up on this mage who's on his own at the moment, and he's taking a huge amount of damage. Our druid lands a cyclone on the other paladin, who's still in a banned position and able to take a lot of CC, and bashes Leatherbelt. I then put a 1 second fear onto the other paladin, and we're actually able to just force a lot of pressure onto this mage, and we get one of the paladin's trinkets, so now neither have a trinket, and we're actually going to be able to do a lot of damage now, because I put a Shadow Fury onto Leatherbelt, and then just keep my dots rolling basically, to try and make this a bit harder to heal. Now, there, we just use positioning of their team, in order to CC them a lot more, which means we can force their cooldowns a lot more, and there we actually got a trinket, which means we are going to get that kill later. Now I'm just going to leave that game and talk about this one. Now straight away in the opener they were grouped up, and my priest got a triple fear, and we were able to force a wings from one of the paladins as well as divine favour already, and when they have so many cooldowns, forcing little ones like that really does make a difference, and we're able to get a lot of damage out just because of that one fear, which meant they were both in our line of sight for a while, and they had no way to stop any of our damage. Now in this next bit of the clip, all three players of theirs are nowhere near the tomb, and watch how we're going to abuse this with our damage. The mage is casting an evocation, so he's not going to be polymorphing anyone here to try and stop damage, and a paladin is really in the open here. My priest uses a devouring plague on him. I get my full dots up along with that curse of elements, while Leatherbelt's put into a silence. Now with that we immediately drop the paladin to half, and he's forced to start using a lot of his mana to heal, and I get the double fear on the paladin and the mage wills, and I put a short fear onto Leatherbelt. Now that forces Aura Mastery from them and Guardian from a paladin, so there the cooldowns we force really are important, and they're quite long cooldowns because they have a 5-minute cooldown. That's not going to be back up when we're trying to get a kill from a paladin, so they're going to be relying instead on Leatherbelt's cooldowns. If we can force those as well, that window where they'll have no cooldowns up is going to be where we try to get our kill. Now in this bit we've already forced the trinket of a paladin, and we get a full fear onto Leatherbelt, so we're going to try and do as much damage as we can during this, and we're going to put it onto the mage here, while a paladin is stunned and Leatherbelt is silenced despite Aura Mastering, because he did it in the silence. Our druid then gets a knockback on the cast, and he gets one cast off there, but we're still trying to keep damage high here because we had great positioning for that. And because they're all in the open, none of them are able to line us out of damage, and we're able to land CC on whoever we like, because they're not really too worried. So I get a full fear onto a paladin, while their entire team's dropping, and that actually forces his bubble. Now that means he's not going to have that, and his Guardian's down as well still at this point, so he's used both of his big cooldowns here, so he's going to be a great target for us to kill now. Now here, they realise they do need to start line of sighting us, so they go to run over the tomb. They all go to the same position, and I get a triple howl, and we're going to put huge damage into the mage with this. My priest devouring plagues him, I haunt him, and our druid stuns Leatherbelt, and then we actually force the mage's ice block there, as well as Leatherbelt's bubble, and the paladin's dropping low. Now if they'd spread out for that, we wouldn't have been able to get that triple howl, which really ruined them, and I put a full fear onto Leatherbelt while a paladin gets silenced. Bear in mind he has no trinket or bubble now, and our mage silences Cyclone's Drune, Now, because they're playing double Holy Paladin, it's going to take quite a while for us to get kills, and at this point both have their trinket back, but the mage is low. Now here was a great example of cooldown mismanagement. Now I'm just going to slow this clip down and explain everything that's happening. So we've got a lot of damage out onto the mage Drune here. He's down to 30%, but both paladins have trinket and are out of CC at the moment. Our druid's going to land a full cyclone onto Leatherbelt, and I'm going to put a half fear onto a paladin, while our priest's doing a lot of damage to the mage, and my dots are about to come back up on him. Now a paladin, trinkets there, and we actually force an ice block as well, so 2 big cooldowns been overlapped here. One would have sufficed for either, but actually Leatherbelt then trinkets as well, because he didn't want to be CC'd anymore. Now this team has overlapped their defensive cooldowns massively, because all 3 have used a big cooldown there. We got both healers trinkets, so they can both be CC'd now, and bubbles aren't back up yet, and we got the mage's ice block. So we're in a great position to get a kill on anyone now, purely because they didn't communicate properly, and we were able to get a lot of their cooldowns overlapped. Now those clips were a bit unrealistic because they're against a double healer fire mage, which I know isn't a particularly vibrant ladder comp, but here I'm playing some MLD against a Kittycleave, and I'm going to show you how the paladin's mismanagement of his cooldowns is actually going to cost him the game. Now, so we're going to start off with a sheep onto him, and we're going to actually open hard on the warrior without actually popping any cooldowns, but the pally CC'd, so he takes a lot of damage. Now there, the pally trinkets the cyclone and gets recycloned. Now this is important. The Paladin knew he was going to trinket that Cyclone if it landed on him, and instantly got recycloned. I'm then going to put him into a Fear straight off that, and he's actually going to have to bubble. Now, if the Paladin knew he was going to trinket the Cyclone, and then got recycloned anyway, he should have just used his bubble to immune the Cyclone initially, and that way he wouldn't have had to use his trinket and bubble within 10 seconds. Now, with the Paladin having trinket, bubbled, and Guardian, so he's overlapped his cooldowns massively, he then puts a sack on the warrior as well. Now, he's used all of his cooldowns in such a short space of time, and then follows it up with an Aura Mastery. Now, I'm going to trinket, I'm going to put the Paladin into a full Fear, which he now has no breaker for. My mage and I are just going to burst down the Feral and kill him there and then. Now there, the Paladin overlapped his defensive cooldowns, so he didn't manage them properly, and we punished him for it massively by actually just CCing him to force his other one as well, his other big cooldown and CC breaker, in this case bubble, and we just got the kill there because of it, because he trinketed before bubbling, even though he probably knew he was going to have to trinket, and then we just followed up with more CC knowing he'd trinket. Now I'm just going to talk for a little bit and summarise this video. Now, in terms of positioning and how to punish opponents for that, you're going to want, it just comes with experience really, and you'll know that if a Paladin, for example, is away from a pillar and he's got no trinket or bubble, you'll just know to swap to him eventually, and it really does, it takes a lot of practice of knowing when's the best time to do it and how best to punish someone, but especially with positioning, because that can be quite an advanced part of arena play anyway. And it really, like I said, it just comes with experience. It's the same with kind of punishing cooldown mismanagement. You'll see in this clip here, all players trinketed in the first sort of 20 seconds of combat, and you know, we're just going to punish them and get the kill there and then for that, because you know, that's a huge overlap and it definitely wasn't necessary. I mean, if the Paladin had just bubbled instead of trinketing, he'd have definitely been able to just survive there, and he'd have had his trinket as well. And if the Feral hadn't trinketed, you know, he'd have been able to trinket and pop his defensive cooldowns, but they really just overlapped their cooldowns massively. So I hope you found this video useful, and thanks for watching.